I'm Sam Blatt. I use she, her pronouns. I'm with Progress, Iowa. I want to thank you all for being here to the Waterloo People's Condition of the State event. This is one of 7 events around the state. It's very exciting that you are all here to represent our community. I just wanted to start off thanking everyone for being here tonight, speakers and attendees alike. I really appreciate it, especially on a Friday night, as I've said a little bit so far. I just really wanted to welcome everyone here. We know that the needs of working families in Iowa have been ignored. The access to healthcare is out of reach for far too many Iowans, and our education system is lacking in the resources it needs to prepare the next generation. Working family needs quality and good paying jobs. So together we're standing up against Governor Reynolds and the Republican-led legislature because we know that Iowa can do better. We believe in Iowa, and we're going to hold them accountable so that we can all have a brighter future. I'd like to first off thank our headlining speakers, Jerry Hagman and Richie Kurtenbach. Jerry is the president of the Black Hawk Labor Assembly, and I'm going to let him kick it off with his remarks. So thank you, everybody. And Jerry, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. I think hopefully you can hear me. And I really look forward to learning something from each one of you over the next 45 minutes. And I'd like to say thanks to Sam Blatt, one of the new regional organizers with Progress, Iowa, which is sponsoring today's event. And also the director, Matt Sanovic, who shows up at our union conventions every year, the AFL-CIO conventions at Prairie Meadows every year. They're very supportive, and we need all our partner organizations that all of you belong to, like this one in Common Good, Iowa, the Iowa Labor Center, Iowa Citizens for Community Improvement, and Iowa Citizens Action Network, and there's many more out there. Thanks for being here today. We need to join together to battle some of the Republican nonsense that the Iowa legislators have shoved through and will be approved by Governor Reynolds, that have and will be more. Most of you know me, but I am a retired telephone technician with the company that is now called Lumen. I had 36 years with the landline and internet company. And I'm also a Vietnam veteran, Navy veteran, thanks to President Nixon back in the 70s. I'm an active and proud Democrat, and I'm a 42-year union member, and with Communication Workers of America. And we have others on here. Governor Reynolds has shown her approval of bad policy like destruction of the public sector unions by getting rid of Chapter 20, something that was kicked off by Terry Branstad. And they also think they have done a good thing by privatizing Medicaid. Many of you know more about that than I, but they've been putting providers of service out of business and hurting the clients a whole lot. Governor Reynolds has also fallen in lockstep with Trump by passing voter suppression laws to make it more difficult to vote. I've been an election official here locally for 5 or 6 years, and it really ticks me off to hear him make up lies like someone did yesterday nationally. Nowadays, you can carry guns in the Capitol, but you cannot make some decisions about your own healthcare decisions and women's health. But I am an optimist. I think we can do better. Unions this past year have won some very good strikes, UAW, John Deere strike, and the Kellogg strike. There's 2 examples of more people wanting to band together to do good. So I am not an optimist. Also, the election of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris is very important to unions, as to all of us. They believe in unions, and they have been working to undo some of the damage done by the last four chaotic years. For example, the National Labor Relations Board is getting staffed by people that are doing the work that they're supposed to. The NLRB is the court of last resort for all workers, and unions help lift everybody up, not just union workers. And so I'm getting very close to the end. The best part of any speech is my final point. Union members do not all vote the same. As many as 40% of union members voted for what I consider the wrong people in the last couple of elections. But we as union leaders try to do the research and just show them who we think will be best for working people. So that's what we work for every day. If you allow me one free note here, I'm also the Blackhawk County Democrat Secretary. And I want to remind you all that the caucuses are coming up 1 month from today. Ours locally in this county will be at the UAW Hall with the doors opening at 6. So I know it's going to be challenging because of the virus, but will be an in-person event with mask. Highly recommended. So keep that in mind. And now I'd like to introduce another very good labor member and leader, Richie Kurtenbach, who will tell you more about himself, but out here almost every day at the Labor Temple on Burton Avenue. He's the one that makes this place look pretty and keep it running. And he's an IBW 288 leader. So take it away, Richie.
Thank you, Jerry. And again, welcome to our People's Condition of the State event. Again, we're here today to speak up for what Iowans need to care for our communities. I could talk about a lot of the issues labor's fighting for, like the public workers need, like Jerry stated. And let me just start a little bit here, my own story. I started in the early 80s becoming an apprentice electrician. And later on, I'll talk a little bit about what happened in the early 80s in construction. But in today's world, we fought hard years ago for a prevailing wage here in the state of Iowa, and we came up one vote short. These are things that help workers, not just in their wages and benefits, but help them in their career, to help them keep them staying here in the state of Iowa. These are just some of the things that we, work for. And it's not just union workers. A lot of the times what we're doing as labor leaders, we're fighting for all Iowans. Very seldom is it just that small amount of union workers. So in my role as a labor leader with the IBW here, Local 288 in our Cedar Valley area, we also cover a lot of the 10 counties in northern Iowa around the Mason City area as well. So I do get around the state quite a bit. I'm active when it comes to the politics. I want to know who the people are that we're voting for, or if they're asking us to vote for them. I want to know more than just who they are. I want to know what their thought patterns are. And I think we all, as Iowans, that's the core of the whole caucus process when we're vetting people who are running for these offices and making these decisions, whether it's here in the state of Iowa or in the federal races. But as my role here today, I am also president of the Waterloo Building Trades Council, and we're also seeing the problem with not having enough people in the construction trades. We are having difficulty time right now in finding people even to apply for our apprenticeship programs. In lieu of that, the non-union contractors aren't slowing down at all. And we've seen an onslaught of undocumented workers being taken advantage of, but that's how a lot of these contractors are trying to get these jobs at the lower rates yet, or lower prices yet, is by using undocumented workers. And they're coming to us for help. Either they're not getting paid, or one of them gets injured on the job site and they have no health care. And we know they're there. They're coming to us. We hear the stories. We see them. We've been finding them on the job sites. So let me move on. We know the needs of working families in Iowa have been ignored. Items like childcare are now just being recognized by the Republican Party as a roadblock to having the workers needed. Not because of the workers' need, but because business is now concerned this is a hindrance for them to have the needed workers for their business to operate. We need our governor to invest in working families in a way that will kickstart our economy. Simple things like increasing the minimum wage. Far too many people in our state are being told that's all they'll receive. No wonder there's a shortage of workers. Really? $7.25 an hour? If you look at the basis for the minimum wage when it was first started, we'll see if we had followed that guideline from back then, today our minimum wage would be probably around $20 an hour. There is many people leaving the state to find a better career. A recent study reveals that Iowa's nearly split even state when it comes to those leaving and who's coming. The Hawkeye state seen 49% of people coming in, with only about 50% of the people leaving the state in the survey. What certainly doesn't add up to a mass exodus that some might lead you to believe. But the most popular reason people come to Iowa was to be with their family. The most popular reason to leave the state was for a better job. When considering leaving Iowa, this should not have to be a choice between family and a career. Back in the 80s, myself included, we didn't have a choice. There were no jobs here in Iowa. It was pretty dismal. And any job we left outside the state was usually for more money. And we came back. We came back to the state of Iowa, again, because of family, just like we're hearing today. But today, this issue should not be just because we lack the desire to assist our workers to have a better career. By increasing wages and making companies pay what workers need to survive, Iowans will finally have a choice to get ahead, or a chance to get ahead. I'd just like to say thank you again for taking the time to hear some of our issues here today. Sam, I'm going to turn it back to you.
Thank you so much, Richie. And I apologize. I was so excited to get started. I forgot to thank all of our host organizations like the Ask Me Council 61, the American Postal Workers Union Iowa, Healthcare for America Now, the Interfaith Alliance of Iowa, Iowa Citizen Action Network, Iowa Main Streets and Country Roads, Lower Drug Prices Iowa Iowa, Progress Iowa, and Tax March Iowa. So thank you for letting me get that out there, y'all. I apologize. I was just so excited to start this event. And I really want to thank again all of our speakers. We're going to start with Lisa Munoz, a professor and department chair for Humanities, Social Sciences, and Wellness at Hawkeye. Thank you for joining us today, Lisa.
Yeah, thanks, Sam, for the invitation to speak, and thanks for everyone being here tonight. And I just want to say that I'm an educator in Iowa. I've been an educator in Iowa for 20 years. I've been a member of ISEA for over 17 years. And but I do want to just clarify that I'm here on my own behalf tonight. As an educator, as someone who's literally interacted with thousands of students, I lost count, but it's got to be close to 10,000 over the years. Iowans believe that every student deserves an accurate, honest, and quality education. Governor Reynolds and the GOP-led legislature have worked over the years to devalue the profession of education and have put students at risk. The following are some of the issues that students and teachers are facing throughout the state. First, corporate Kim is set on defunding public education, sending more of our tax dollars to private schools while denying access to resources for students in public schools. There have been attempts to censor books and other curricular materials that don't align with a certain political agenda. This has put educators like myself in precarious situations for simply doing our jobs. But it's also led to a shortchanging of Iowa students who are eager to learn and understand the incredibly complex world around them. There's been an attempt to politicize COVID to the detriment of students, the prohibition of mask mandates, and overfilling classrooms, leading to greater demands of teachers who are putting their own safety on the line each day that they do their jobs. There have been increasing mental health issues among students that are not fully acknowledged. This has predated COVID. At the college level where I work, we're seeing an increase in mental health issues that correlate with students working 2, 3, or even 4 jobs while trying to work toward their degrees. Tuition continues to rise as the state diverts education funds away from direct services. But it's not just the financial burden of tuition that is placed on students. The emotional toll of regular school shootings and other acts of violence, the expectations of having it all figured out at a young age, and the challenge of affordable, accessible, and quality childcare for student parents are all factors influencing the mental health of young people today. Finally, emphasis on students as future workers. In both K through 12 and at the community college level, there's a greater emphasis on careers and skill-based learning. And yet employers continue to tell us that graduates are lacking the so-called soft skills, things like critical thinking, communication, empathy, and perspective taking. We can't continue to degrade humanities, social science, and the arts and still expect a functioning civil society. The growing political divide is evidence of that. And students are not robots. They are whole people with experiences and dreams and goals and curiosities. People are valuable as human beings, not solely in their relationship to the workforce. And we should be helping students reach their full potential, whatever that may be. We need to focus on helping young people thrive and encouraging them to stay in Iowa, as the former speaker just mentioned. The politicization of COVID, censoring of students' lived experiences, and not providing access to the resources they need to be successful doesn't just hurt students, though. It hurts all of us as Iowans. Governor Reynolds and the GOP legislature should take note. We are calling on our elected officials to fully fund public education and to treat educators as the professionals that we are. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lisa. I love those words, every minute of them. Our next speaker is Gwen Bramlett Hecker, the program director at Riverview Center. Thank you so much, Gwen, for being with us today.
Thanks, Sam. I very much appreciate being asked to be here. I do speak on my own behalf, but I also am speaking for Riverview Center and for the survivors that we serve. Briefly, Riverview Center provides long-term and crisis support services for survivors of sexual violence. That includes children who are sexually abused, adults who carry with them the trauma of childhood sexual abuse, as well as those who have been sexually assaulted or abused currently, now. I'd like to speak just briefly a bit on what I see working in my work directly, but also peripherally, the lack of access so many Iowans have to healthcare, caring for their bodies and their physical health, as well as their mental health, and as well as the continual threat to social service and victim service support for Iowans, all Iowans across the state. And I want to just tap into one thing that Lisa mentioned, and that's what I've come to see over the last few years is a real lack of empathy in the leadership in Des Moines, both from the governor's office and from the GOP-led legislature. Empathy isn't so much about walking in somebody else's shoes, like we've always thought, but really when you dig into what empathy is, particularly when you think of empathy as a leader, it's listening with intention to understand someone else's lived experience, and then taking that next step, which is believing that lived experience, even if that experience is different than your own. And effective leadership cannot be such if there is no empathy. And it's been very clear, to the extent that the legislature and the governor's office has either been uninformed about the lived experiences of so many Iowans who lack access to basic health care or mental health care, or the insurance to gain access to those, or they are aware and it just doesn't seem to matter. Going forward, I absolutely encourage the leadership in Des Moines to allow those lived experiences of Iowans, particularly those Iowans who have the least access to healthcare, mental health care, insurance, to be at the center of their political priorities and to be at the center of their legislative decision-making in this next session. Too often those decisions are made taking into account the perspectives of those who have the most and those who have the greatest access and have the greatest resources. And it's time for the leadership in Des Moines to shift and to care about those who have least access. I work daily with those who have been harmed by others, who have been impacted by the lingering trauma of violence and abuse. And I see daily how that the impact of that harm manifests in so many other challenges in life, chronic health conditions, chronic mental health concerns, chronic poverty, homelessness, food insecurity, and social isolation. By investing in more accessible healthcare, again, both from physical healthcare as well as access to mental health care and social service and victim service support across Iowa, leadership could create real pathways for physical, mental, and emotional healing that would, just as we know trauma and violence has a ripple effect that moves from the person who's been harmed through their family, through their workplace, and ultimately through their communities. Creating these healing pathways by setting legislative priorities of access to mental health care and health care, physical health care. The legislature could in fact create these pathways that the ripple effect could go the other direction, that once you heal, help someone heal, they also then can heal within their family, they can heal within their workplace, they can heal within their whole community. Just as we always say, hurt people, we too know that healed people heal people. And it's time for the legislature, through a more empathetic leadership approach, and by empathetic, remember, I mean listening with intention to understand the lived experiences of other and taking one step further to believe those lived experiences as real and valid, the legislature could really turn around a lot of the misery that a lot of Iowans are experiencing right now. Thank you.
Wow, Gwen, thank you so much for that those amazing remarks. Definitely could not state anything better. I really appreciate that. And I want to move on to our next speaker, Mr. Terrence Hollingsworth. I really appreciate you being here. I know you do a lot in the community, and I want to definitely hear what you have to say about infrastructure.
Thank you, Sam. Really unexpected to be here, but I'm happy to be here because I often talk about when I'm engaged, when I'm doing stuff, I offer perspective, I offer depth to some of these conversations. And so in 2016, I started working with some campaigns, and we started talking about infrastructure, what infrastructure looked like. Not just roads and bridges, but high-speed internet, development in, underserved neighborhoods. And, it's been, 4 years now that we've really been able to engage at a pretty high level. And so I'm happy about that. I don't think we're there yet, but hopefully if we keep having the conversations in these really important ways, then, we'll get there. So Iowa infrastructure, it really is a nonpartisan issue. The challenges of our generations are both complex and nonpartisan. We share the desire to live in communities where our children attend schools that prepare them well to live, to work, and raise their children as Iowans. The condition of Iowa's roads and bridges directly impacts Iowa's quality of life, opportunities, and future economic growth. So in November 2021, the Iowa Department of Transportation published a report saying that Iowa leads the nation with the most structurally deficient bridges in America. The new federal infrastructure spending will prioritize repairs for those roads and bridges, but also building an electric vehicle ecosystem and improving high-speed internet in farming communities, as well as in underserved neighborhoods and urban communities as well. Given the demographic and economic restructuring underway, we invite Governor Reynolds to integrate nonpartisan policies that benefit working class employees at big corporations and small business development, embrace federal and state initiatives that unlock the value of untapped economic potential of neighborhood central business district. And lastly, we invite Governor Reynolds to affirm that in Iowa, everyone counts. regardless of ethnicity, rich or poor, or sexual preference. It is our moment to create a more perfect union. Therefore, in this 2022 legislative session, we hold our elected officials accountable to engage in every community that they represent, regardless of party and outside of their political base. One such opportunity would be Empower North End in Waterloo. So history will report that not only did we answer the call to serve, but we did it well. I will be brief, I will be done, but thank you very much, Sam, and I look forward to engaging with everyone even more.
Thank you, Terrence. Those were some really amazing words. I really appreciate you sharing that with us today. And I want to introduce our next speaker, Teresa Culpepper. She is in the Waterloo Human Rights Commissioner, and she is a part of the Hawkeye Nursing faculty. Thank you for being here. I'm sure you have a lot of perspectives.
Thank you. And I also do want to acknowledge that Terrence Hollingsworth is also one of our human rights commissioners for the city of Waterloo. So I am currently the chair of the Waterloo Human Rights Commissioner. I am a registered nurse at Mercy One, and I am a nursing faculty member for Allen College and Hawkeye Community College. And I'd like to start with a quote by Damian Barr. He said that we are not all in the same boat. We are not all in the same boat. We are in the same storm. Some of us are on super yachts, while some of us have simply an oar. So with that, we need a legislature that is kind and thinks of others. COVID is a national health crisis. It is not a political hoax. The Delta variant is causing hospitalizations where it is days, 1, 2, 3, 4 days sitting in an emergency room throughout the state to be admitted to an intensive care unit or to a medical surgical floor. Now we're being faced with the highly contagious Omicron variant, which is causing illness in those who are not vaccinated. Recently, our CDC made recommendations where it changes quarantining and testing to prove negative tests, and the American Medical Association came out against it with recommendations that would require a little longer quarantine and also negative testing. Unfortunately, what has come about is we are looking at our economy versus people's lives and livelihoods. Right now in Black Hawk County, I believe the update today is that there's 372 new cases in just one day, and it's an all-time high. There has to be a balance that allows for the spread of the virus to stop and our economy to shelter the storm that we're all in. Vaccines and masks save lives. I encourage every legislature person to speak facts. Influenza cases are up this year. Cases of RSV and pneumonia are increased, all because people are not being required to wear masks. Get vaccinated, get boosted, get tested, wear masks, avoid crowds, stay home if you are sick. These are the things that should be spoken in ads, in commercials, in interviews. Another aspect is that our colleges statewide have been struggling to produce nurses and other healthcare workers at a pace that's required right now. Colleges are increasing the number of admissions. There have been some government opportunities for sponsoring of funding, like the Iowa Last Dollar Scholarship that covers nursing and respiratory therapy and other programs. The Board of Nursing allowed temporary licenses for a period for new graduates so they could go into practice earlier. However, that's no longer being offered. We need to look at ways to help healthcare workers sustain this storm. The state right now is hiring travel healthcare providers to shoulder the load that our hospitals have, and these workers are making $220 an hour. And approximately $15,000 a week is being paid to outside companies. And this is not sustainable because the average nurse in our state makes $40 an hour. So for that nurse making $40 an hour, it is definitely appealing to leave and travel outside of their community to make the $220 an hour. But ultimately, what does that do for Iowa? That makes us even more short-staffed. So things that we need mental health care. We need access to all types of care. Other things to think about from a human rights perspective is we need permanent housing or places and shelters like the Waterloo Warming Center so that all communities are able to take care of those who are in the storm with simply an oar. At a national level, we saw convictions providing a legal verdict and some sort of justice for the families of George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery. However, at local levels, we still have different regions fighting to get symbols changed, like griffins on police uniforms. We're also faced with book censorship. One of our Pulitzer Prize winners, Nicole Hannah Jones, is from our state, but her book is essentially banned in the state. Some wins that we have had is the ordinance 5,522 or 5522, known as the Fair Chance Initiative or the Ban the Box, which was passed in Waterloo in 2019, allowing for or requiring employers to take off questions about criminal histories that aren't related to employment. And that was upheld by the Iowa Supreme Court last year. Dubuque has an equity or a diversity equity toolkit that's in place to look at their community and the laws that they're creating to make sure that it's equitable citywide, while as many other communities have yet to make those decisions. So when you're speaking to your legislature, I want to remind everybody that when we're making decisions, we're not all in the same boat. We are all in the same storm. And some of us are on super yachts. Most of us are not. Thank you, Sam.
Wow, I have chills, Teresa. Thank you so much for all of your amazing remarks and your very, amazing perspective, that you were able to give us. I want to give the chance to our last speaker, Kimberly Carroll, the president of the Iowa American Postal Workers Union, to speak and let us finish off with a strong closing here. I know you have some amazing things to say about what's going on as well. So thank you for being here tonight.
Well, it's tough to follow behind Teresa. But as many of you know, and we've been in the battle to save the public postal service for about 18 months. And that struggle still continues. Since the appointment of Louis DeJoy, we have seen a systematic degrading of services and dissembling of equipment and our network. I've worked for the Postal Service. I'm coming on my 30-year anniversary. And I think it's important that folks understand that when you come into the Postal Service, you swear an oath to protect the mail, to make sure that it's being delivered and it's being delivered safely. Part of the plan that's being implemented by DeJoy is to release the mail to what is termed as surface transfer centers. These are private companies that are taking the mail in the middle mile away from postal employees and doing exactly the same work that we do. They distribute, process, and transport the mail. That's what we do in the Postal Service. So while you bring the mail to a postal employee, when you mail a package over the counter, we have to send it to a surface transfer center. That's a private company who doesn't have the same obligations to the American public to keep the mail safe. They don't take the same oath. They don't have the same responsibility to provide transparency, and they don't have the same service obligations that the Postal Service has. And unfortunately, many of our customers don't understand that. And especially over Christmas, it was very frustrating for customers and employees alike to be trying to explain to customers what happened to their package. Where is my package? Was the most common question that we had. And unfortunately, in many cases, we were not able to provide information because they were at a surface transfer center and we don't have access to the information within a private company. This is just one of many of the parts of the 10-year plan that are slowly being implemented. In addition to that, for the first time ever in this last holiday season, we saw a temporary increase of package prices so that the Postal Service could leverage the demand from our customers to send parcels at Christmas time. That was supposed to be temporary, and technically it was. That increase was taken back just after Christmas on the 27th of December. But next week, we have another rate increase. And in addition to the rates that are affecting parcels and package services, we're also going to be increasing other services. And I think it's terribly important that we understand that they're targeting people who are on fixed incomes and low income. That's who's being affected by these changes. Because for example, in Waterloo where I work, the box section rates for the smallest boxes, the ones that most often are used by families and people, individuals, are doubling, nearly doubling. But the prices for the same boxes or boxes used by businesses, usually larger boxes, are not being increased at the same rate. So the folks that really need our services, these are people who may be homeless and are using a PO box as a way to receive services and additional aid in order to support their families, are now being taxed essentially at a much higher rate than companies are. And it's unfortunate because these folks are going to have to choose whether to have a steady mailing address or to feed their family. And many of them are choosing not to renew their PO boxes. So we are pricing our services for our community out of reach for most of the people who are here in our communities, and making it difficult for even nonprofits like local churches to be able to communicate with their congregations because they can't afford to send out newsletters any longer. We're pricing them out of business. And it's sad for me to see the change from leadership at the Postal Service, from maintaining our constitutional mandate to unify communities and to be a way for everyone to have access to some type of communication that is affordable, and start pricing it to out of reach for most of the communities that are using them. But I'm here to tell you that that does not have to be the end of the story. Most of these changes have taken place because at the time the 10-year plan was proposed, we didn't have a fully seated board of governors. President Biden did nominate 3 board of governors, but the Senate dragged their feet on confirming those board members. And so they were not in place and fully functioning when they came to a vote on whether or not to continue to implement the 10-year plan. We now have 2 vacant seats that President Biden has nominated. And again, the Senate hasn't set any kind of nomination hearings to confirm these board of governors. The board of governors is who sets policy for the Postal Service. They're the ones that make a decision about how we're going to provide services, what the rates are going to be. They make those recommendations. And it's critical that we have a fully functioning board of governors. And the next board of governors meeting is coming up in February. So while we have nominees, we still don't have a full slate of board of governors. So I'm here to encourage people to stay active in the political process, talk to their senators, talk to the governor, have Iowa be a standout state that says that we want to build communities. We want to make sure that communities stay strong in this state so that we do have places for families to grow, for businesses to relocate. And the only way we're going to be able to do that is if we save the public postal service, stop the 10-year plan and all of the additional things that are included, which will eventually close small community post offices because they're not creating enough retail. The Postal Service is not a business. We are a service that is designed to unify this country. And we have to continue to send a message that that's exactly what we want the Postal Service to be in the future. And so I'm hoping anyone who hears this today will take action, because we can make a change. We can make a difference. It has happened. We did it when they were trying to dismantle the machines. The public got involved and they stopped that. We can stop the 10-year plan. We can stop the joy with your help.
Thank you so much, Kimberly. I really appreciate that strong call to action. It's very important that we have that. I really want to thank all of those speakers. I want to leave a couple minutes if there's any questions for us to have that. And if there are no questions, I have one that was previously submitted to ask all of our speakers to speak on. So I'll give it 1 second if anyone has a question to ask. All right. Well, I wanted to say, for those who are listening or who'll watch this event later, because we'll be posting it on our YouTube channel, what is the best way for us to get involved and to stand up against the agenda that corporate Kim Reynolds is trying to pass this legislative session? And this can be for any speaker who would like to answer, and we can have more than one as well address this.
Well, I'll just speak as an educator. I want students to know their agency. I think that, you know, as educators, we attend events and we write and we complain, we do all these things, but students, I think sometimes passively sit back and wait for someone else to kind of take the lead. And as an educator, one of the things that I try to do is to show them examples of young people who took the lead and really empower them and help them see their own agency in making social change. So I guess my call to action would be particularly to young people to become more civically engaged, to connect with organizations, to really put their values into action in that way. So.
Awesome, thank you. Did anybody else want to answer that? Kimberly?
Well, I wanted to echo what Lisa said. I think it's really important that we go to town hall meetings or engage with Iowa leaders as often as we possibly can and tell our personal stories. It's so important that they understand how the policies that they are creating affect you personally. That's powerful. And it's something you can easily talk about. I mean, I've been with the post office for 30 years. That's why it's easy for me to talk about the post office. What's happening to you as an individual and to your family or to your student, that's important to you. And it's something that you are intimately or have intimate knowledge about and can speak very profoundly. And I think that's so important that they understand how what they're doing either in Des Moines or in Washington, D.C. is impacting you in your home.
I want to follow up with that as well. In the union trades, we talk about our members being involved to make change. And America is a union. And that's what we're all about, is standing up. If you want your concern to be heard, you got to participate. You can't sit on the sidelines. When you get that opportunity, whether it's an open forum, I was at one this morning myself. You've got to talk to the people. Make a trip to Des Moines. Get to a point where they understand what your issue is or what your concern is. I've seen many people when the whole thing with the Medicaid debacle being privatized in the state of Iowa. I know people personally that were affected by that. You've got to talk to these legislators so they know your personal aspect of what's going on. If your work, if it's your job, it's your kids being, your education for your kids, healthcare, all these issues are very important. And you got to remember, they get inundated with just thousands and thousands of things, but you've got to make that step forward and get to them where they know you and know your issue. If you want something changed, you've got to be involved. You can't sit on the sidelines.
Absolutely.
I was going to say, like for Waterloo, they're having Lon Kameyer, retired ATU president for the Waterloo city and paratransit bus drivers. But anyway, we're having a legislative forum on the 21st, and I didn't catch where it's at. I'm thinking it's probably going to be at where it normally is downtown, right, Jerry and Richie? But anyway,
I believe it might be virtual.
because the only ones that ever show up are the Democrats. The Republicans don't want to show up and hear what we got to say.
Yep.
If I could add too, Lisa's 100% right about young people, about, really role modeling to them. But I'm also going to argue even us middle-aged folk, for a lot of people, it's intimidating. The political process is intimidating. Politicians are intimidating. And there's so much to care about. There's so much to care about. So I think all of us sitting here right now, we're very comfortable in this setting. We're very comfortable going to political forums, emailing we have relationships with them, but I think it's important for us to take other people by the hand and say, what do you care about? What's an issue you care about? Let me work with you to figure out how you can start making an impact in whatever that arena is. Because I think sometimes it's so overwhelming because there's so much that people feel very disconnected, overwhelmed, and whatever. So I would even argue all of us, either in our workplaces, in our neighborhoods, start bringing it up to people and find out what they care about, and then give them information about how to start having an impact themselves. There's one person I know who homelessness is something for some reason that just strikes a chord with him. So I've been working with him about how to have more impact in finding funding or supporting, legislators providing funding for homeless services, right? And I think we can really even reach out to each other and help each other kind of create plans to get more involved.
So, hi, I apologize. My camera is not on. I'm in my truck and it's already dark, so not even gonna attempt it. My name is Ray Foyce. For those that don't know me, I work with the Iowa State Education Association and also am on the Waterloo City Council. And so I appreciate you all having this conversation this evening. And, Gwen, I don't think I'm that scary. I think I'm mostly okay. I try to be as even keeled as possible, but I think you're right. And the one thing that I've attempted to do within is always encourage those in education to be a part of the process and just come and sit at a forum. Those of you that know my wife, she's a kindergarten teacher. Whenever we go to forums, she's always bringing something along, and doing grading or cutting out stuff. I think people need to understand you can be engaged and multitask at the same time. And I think for many people, and I actually had this conversation with a couple of other city councilors today, and then with a couple of other people. If we want better for our workers, we have to start engaging at the local level as much as possible, and taking the playbook that the Republicans have had and getting people on school boards and getting people on city councils and building the bench to do that. And that's really what has happened. We see some of the things that have occurred, and I use education. That's my background for over 20 years now. In the late 2000s, early 2010s in Kansas, North Carolina, Arizona, some of the things that were going on. Now we're kind of with the age of Trump. It was a perfect storm for Iowa. I was hoping we would be able to rebound, and I'm not sure that it's going to happen as quick as we can, but we have to find people who are going to be able to be engaged at the local level. And I think I haven't done as good of a job. I need to do better about being out engaged with people who may not feel comfortable. Not necessarily the people who want to be want to be active in politics, but people who want to know more. That's kind of how I started off 25 years ago. I just wanted to know more stuff. And then over time, I got comfortable with the legislators and ended up lobbying in DC for a while. And I think we allow people to get to that comfortable space and do things like this and say, hey, we're not all so bad. Let's figure out a way to help engage people in a different way too. So thanks again for everybody for giving up your Friday evening to speak about this. And it's an important topic that we continue to have as the legislature gets ready to gavel in next week.
This is Terrence, and I would like to really say that this engagement part for me has been probably front and center about how I've been involved in the community, because I go to a lot of events. I have a lot of friends that are doing different things, and one thing that I notice is our elected officials are not there engaging themselves. And so I start to try to create opportunities for them to come and engage, and not only with people that are really politically active, but people that normally don't have access to certain kind of candidates and create unique experiences with them. What I've learned is that when they come, the way that it affects the people that show up and are able to talk to an official, they're different after that. They're more engaged in understanding what's going on in the community. They're more likely to vote. And for me, I think our work has to be creating more opportunities and creating standards for our elected officials to come and engage in every neighborhood, in every part of the city. And if we do that well, then I think we can, the pathways become very simple in terms of, what legislation comes up, what do we vote on, how do we get to, creating, more space for everybody to progress.
Awesome. Well, everybody, again, thank you so much for joining us on a Friday night. I wanted to give another quick thank you just to reiterate, thank you to the AFSCME Council 61, the American Postal Worker Union in Iowa, Healthcare for America Now Iowa, Interfaith Allegiance of Iowa, Iowa Citizen Action Network, Iowa Main Streets and County Roads, Lower Drug Prices Now Iowa, Progress Iowa, and last and not least, Tax March Iowa. And again, a big thank you to our speakers. We had Mr. Richie Kurtenbach, the business representative for IBEW Local 288, president of the Black Hawk County Labor Assembly, Jerry Hagman, Lisa Munoz, the professor and department chair of the Humanities, Social Science, and Wellness at Hawkeye, Gwen Bramlett-Hecker, the program director of Riverview Center, Terrence Hollingsworth, the Waterloo Human Rights Commissioner, and amazing man overall doing all the infrastructure behind the scenes, and Teresa Culpepper with the Waterloo Human Rights Commissioner and Hawkeye nursing faculty, and lastly, Kimberly Carroll, the president of the Iowa American Postal Workers Union. Thank you all so much for being here. This will be shared on our YouTube channel later and on our Twitter if you follow at Progress Iowa on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. And I just want to thank you so much again for joining us on a Friday evening and giving us your perspective and expertise. This is the condition of the state for Waterloo, and we're going to focus on a great Iowa to continue our great work here. Thank you so much.